everyone. This is Khristee Rich. Welcome to Holistic Me TV. This is a brand new TV show, and this is the first season. I am so excited to present these guests with you. I am interviewing guests from all around the world to empower you with your health and wellness. A little bit about me. Again, my name is Khristee Rich. I am here in Ridgefield, Connecticut, and I am a writer, a speaker. I have been a holistic health expert for over 18 years, as well as a healer, and I absolutely love the work that I do. I love to empower women with their health and wellness and also help them to overcome chronic conditions, chronic illnesses, and I do that by getting to the root cause and healing the mind, body, and spirit, and then recommending natural remedies and natural ways to heal. So I'm super excited today to bring on my guest, Lauren Fonvielle, and she is in Delaware. I'm going to read her bio so you know a little bit more about the work that she does. So Lauren Fonvielle is an integrative energy practitioner specializing in EFT, tapping for stress, anxiety, and trauma. She guides her clients on a journey of self-healing to break through obstacles, physical, mental, or emotional, that are keeping them stuck and holding them back in life or business. She believes we all have the answers within, and sometimes we just need a little help accessing them. Beautiful. Welcome, Lauren. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and part of this first season. It's awesome.
Yes, first season, very exciting times. So for the audience who is not familiar with you, can you take us back? What is your story? How did you get into the work that you do today?
Yeah. So before I got into all of this, I was in corporate marketing and I was dealing with a lot of anxiety and stress. We had just moved. My husband's in the military. We found out he was going to have to deploy again. And my anxiety really just skyrocketed. And I started having panic attacks. I would say I've always kind of been an anxious person and was always able to kind of keep the lid on it. But then once we got that unexpected news about the deployment and having moved and not having a support system, I just really was in complete overwhelm. And I knew that I needed to figure something out. I knew I needed to feel better so that I could really show up for my kids. And that's what started the journey for me. I ended up going to yoga like I often did when things were stressful. And that particular day, there was a sign poster that was hanging up about yoga teacher training. And I signed up on the spot knowing that that was going to be something that was going to help me through this. It was
Wonderful.
just like a deep knowing that I had to do it. And that decision really just opened the door to a whole lot of other modalities. And I was introduced to sound healing and meditation and Reiki and eventually the emotional freedom technique, tapping. And that was a real game changer for me. And so I started sharing this naturally with friends and some of my clients at the time. I had started working for myself doing freelance marketing and noticing that a lot of my clients were dealing with anxiety around their business. And so I was just naturally sharing, hey, I'm doing this thing called tapping and it's really helping me. Do you want to try it? And so that's kind of how I first got started in sharing it. And when that was helpful to people, I decided, okay, I want to go and get certified so I can really share this properly with people. And that's what I did. And it's really led me to shift my business into doing this work and helping people feel better from the inside out. That's what it's all about.
Wonderful, beautiful, beautiful story. And so for those who are not familiar, can you explain what is EFT? What is tapping? What is emotional freedom technique?
Yeah. So it is this process of gently tapping on certain points of the body while simultaneously acknowledging the emotions that you're feeling. So I often compare it to acupuncture, but instead of little needles, we're applying acupressure. So you can either tap or you can just, gently massage these different points. And doing so helps to regulate the nervous system. It's sending a message to the brain, the amygdala in the brain, which controls fight or flight. And it's sending a message saying, hey, you don't have to be in fight or flight right now. It's not a life or death situation. And it helps to reduce the amount of cortisol in the body, which is the stress hormone. And
Wonderful.
and then you start to feel more at ease in your body, and then you can make more sound decisions. And that's how we all want to make decisions when we're in a calm space and not that, frenetic energy.
Yes, absolutely. Very important to make decisions from a grounded space.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful. So, do you know the history of EFT, why it was created, who it was created by?
Yeah, so EFT came from something called TFT originally, which was thought field therapy,
Mm,
and then was adapted into EFT, which was really made it a little bit easier for people to do. TFT was tapping on certain points for different ailments, and it was much more complex. And Gary Craig, who was one of the students, kind of adapted it to EFT. And the story goes that he was working with one of his clients who had a lot of fear around water, not just swimming, but water. Washing your face, taking a shower. Big fear of water,
mm,
and had been working with her for a long time, trying to get to the root of that. And at the same time had been, studying acupressure points. And I think it's the one was under the nose that's connected with the stomach. And because she would get really nauseous. And so he just one particular day just had her start tapping and talking about the anxiety that she was having around the water. And they were outside by this pool, and suddenly she was like, I'm not scared, and started, walking towards it. And he was like, don't go in the water. You don't know how to swim. And she was like, no, I'm not going to do that. But by talking about it and tapping on the point, she really found some relief. So that's the story behind it.
beautiful.
But it's really just the simple practice of, once you know where the points are, it's tapping on all of the points as part of the protocol, talking about how you're feeling, and allowing yourself to hold space for those emotions, which I think is something that a lot of the time we as human beings don't do, because we don't like
Yes,
feeling the uncomfortable emotions, right?
yes,
It's not a comfortable thing, so we shove them down and we
yes.
distract ourselves with other things. And this is a way to safely allow yourself to express and feel the feelings.
Yes, I agree. So many people today just pushing those feelings down. They're uncomfortable. I don't want to deal with them. I got work to do. I got to take care of the kids. So we push them down. So describe a little bit more about EFT and how it works and who it's for. And you mentioned a little bit about the emotions. So is it moving the emotions? Is that what the tapping is doing, is moving the emotions? Can you describe a little bit more?
Yeah, yeah. So, well, first of all, tapping can be helpful with a wide variety of conditions, from anxiety, stress, overwhelm, to physical pain in the body. It's also been shown to help with PTSD. And yeah, so it does help to move the emotions, move the energy. And for someone who, isn't part of this energetic world, that can sound really kind of out there. Okay, I'm moving my emotions, like what does that really mean? But sometimes, our energy moves through our meridians, and sometimes that energy can get stuck, and tapping on the points helps that to move. And helps, like I mentioned before, helps to reduce the cortisol. So when I describe that, I often use what's called the hand model. So if we pretend that my fist is the brain, and this part of the brain here is the prefrontal cortex, where we make our good sound decisions. When we're tapping on all of these different points on our body, what it's doing is sending a message to the amygdala. We're going to pretend that's my thumb. And the amygdala, again, is that part of the brain that controls fight or flight. So when you are someone who is in chronic pain or dealing with chronic anxiety, that alarm system, that amygdala, is firing. So when that amygdala is firing, that alarm's going off. And when the information's coming up the brain to get to that prefrontal cortex, it can't access that area of the brain. So that's those situations where you feel so overwhelmed, or you're in so much pain, you can't even think straight. And you might even say that, like, I can't even think straight right now. And you literally can't, because you can't access that part of the brain. So by tapping on the points, what's happening in the brain is it's telling that amygdala, hey, you don't need to be creating all that cortisol. And slowly that prefrontal cortex is coming back online. Sometimes it'll be described as, oh, you flipped your lid, right? You lose it, and you and maybe you yell at somebody that doesn't need it, or you just, you
Yes.
can't take it anymore. And so slowly tapping on these points helps to ground you, like we were talking about before. And that there's studies that have been done. One study was done by Dr. Peta Stapleton, who is one of the top researchers in tapping, and it showed that tapping can reduce the amount of cortisol in the body by up to 43%, which is a really, really big number. So,
Wow.
yeah,
Amazing.
so I often tell people, even if just learning one point that you like, for whatever reason, most of my clients have a favorite point, and there's no real rhyme or reason for that. But even if you just, figure out which point you like the most, and you do some tapping or some massage on that point and take some nice deep breaths, it's going to help to reduce that cortisol some, so that you feel calmer. And it's really a practice that helps you, just like the name says, emotional freedom technique. Find freedom from your emotions, because
Mm,
when we are in the midst of feeling all the feelings, it can be really overwhelming. I often think of it as like being in the middle of a tornado and you can't see anything outside of you besides that what's whipping around you. And
yeah,
so this technique helps you to get some perspective from that, so you can shift your viewpoint. And often when we look at things differently, we'll feel differently, and then we can take
yes,
different action and get a
yes,
different result. That's
yes.
what it's all about.
Very well said. Thank you for that. And just to play devil's advocate, I know some people believe that you should be very positive. You should be very positive with your emotions and try not to go into the negative emotions, the anger, and all of these traumas and build them up and dwell on them. So, how is it actually beneficial for people to do the EFT and to go through the emotions instead of just think positive, happy thoughts?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, and that's something that I get a lot, right? Because when you're tapping and you're talking about how you're actually feeling, with whether that's really angry or really sad, yeah, you can go to that opposite end of the spectrum and say, for example, if you're feeling really sad, say, "I'm so happy," right? You can give that lip service, but that's not really how you feel. So there's a disconnect between what you're saying and how you're feeling. And
Yeah,
so the idea behind tapping is really allowing you to sit with how you're feeling. We're not going to avoid it or pretend that it's not there. We're going to allow you to feel those feelings with the intention of slowly moving the needle in an authentic way towards that better thought or feeling. And it might not be practical to think that you're going to go from feeling really sad one minute or one session to, at the end of the session, feeling really happy. If you've had something really upsetting happen in your life, or you've lost a loved one, or you're grieving, it's not likely that you're going to go to really happy, but maybe you can just move the needle a little bit and be grateful for the support that you have in your friends and your family, and maybe that's the better thought for that day. But it's really honoring where you are in that moment.
beautiful, beautiful. And with EFT, is that something that we need to work with a practitioner? Can we work on our own? Is it preferred to work with a practitioner? Because as you mentioned, it can help with trauma, it can help with anxiety, it can help with chronic pain. These are heavy issues.
Yeah. So you absolutely can do this on your own, for sure. There's tons of YouTube videos out there. I make YouTube videos and send them out every week for that reason of really helping people to learn how to do this and to practice it on their own. However, I always like to caveat that with, if the words that the practitioner is using in the video do not match up with how you're feeling, that if those words do not resonate with you, it's really important to pause that and really tune into how you're feeling, because the words that you're saying are an important part of this. And so oftentimes when I'm working with clients, one of the big things that people say to me that I hear a lot is, "I don't know what words to say. I don't know what words to use." And so for that reason, it can be very helpful to work with a practitioner. So just like how I was saying, when you're in the midst of feeling the feelings and you're in that tornado, it's very hard to see outside of that. And working with a practitioner, they have that outside set of eyes, and they can pick up on things that you're saying or your body language, and knowing where to start the process and help guide you through that process. And especially if you're someone who knowingly has trauma, I would recommend working with a practitioner to safely guide you through the practice.
Yes, I agree. And you talked a little bit about chronic pain. So, can you explain to the audience how EFT can help with chronic pain? This
Yeah.
may be a little bit of really for people because they don't understand. If you're not physically touching them, if you're not working on them, how does it help with the pain?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really fascinating how pain manifests in the body. So even when there is a reason for you to be in pain, so let's say for example you were in a car accident and you broke your arm or something happened to your shoulder, and now every time you move in a certain way, even though it's physically healed, you still have that pain, right? So even when there's a physical reason for the pain, as opposed to just one day you start noticing an ache, right? There are often emotional contributors to that pain. So that can be thoughts around, well, if I do this particular activity, is that going to cause a flare up? And that gives you anxiety. And then the anxiety and fear exacerbate the pain, right? And you can get caught in that loop. And so tapping also helps to help you recognize that. And sometimes there are, experiences that we've had in our past that we don't even remember or cognitively remember, or consciously remember. And the tapping helps to connect those dots, and you begin to put things together in a new way. I had a client who came to me with shoulder pain, and she had gone to all these doctors and had gotten all sorts of scans. Everything looked normal, but she was still dealing with a significant amount of pain. And she had never done tapping before. She was very skeptical. Lots of people are skeptical, and that's okay. I always say that that's okay. This is not one of those things you need to believe in order for it to work, because there is a lot of science behind what's going on in the brain. And so with physical pain, you start by describing the pain, getting as specific as you can, where it is in the body, what it feels like in the body. Um, does the pain remind you of anything? So the practitioner is also asking you specific questions. It's a dialogue that's happening through this. So I was asking her, things about, how does it make you feel that you're dealing with this pain? Really frustrated, really annoyed. Um, what does the pain feel like in your body? And she said it felt like a gripping. And then all of a sudden she's like, it feels like I'm being strangled. And as she said those words, you could see the shock on her face. Like, I can't believe I just said that. I've never said that before. And then I
Mm.
was like, well, do you remember when this pain started? And she said 2 years ago. And I said, and then it's, well, was there anything going on in your life at that time that you can think of? And it was when she was leaving her husband, and there was
Mm.
physical abuse that had gone on there. And it was, a really rough time for her. And then the light bulb kind of goes on. Oh, that's when this started. And and it feels like strangling. And as we're tapping through this, she found some physical relief from the pain in the acknowledgement of that. And so it's
Wonderful.
really amazing how the body can hold on to the emotional things that happen to us.
It is. And it's amazing the mind, body, spirit connection. So many people may not really understand the mind, body, and spirit are all connected. So again, if we have one experience, it doesn't just affect us on one level. And pain is an example of that. Chronic illness is an example of that. And it's very important to get to the root cause, like you described with your client, for her to understand why it began, what was the root cause. And so that's holistic healing. It's getting to the root cause and treating it mind, body, and spirit. And again, the body absorbs every memory, every experience that we go through. It has a complete memory system. Even if we think, oh, our body is not wise, our body is very wise and it's very aware. So then it's important for us to then be conscious and to focus on our healing. So beautifully said. So you also do sound healing. Can you describe a little bit about sound healing? What is sound healing and how does sound heal us?
Yes. So I play crystal alchemy singing bowls, and I just recently was doing this, and I'll call it a sound bath. And I had someone email me, "Wait, are we actually in a bath?" I'm like, "No, no, no. It's just that the sound surrounds you, right?" So the idea is that the vibration of the bowls syncs up with the vibration of your body, because at our smallest molecular level, we are vibrating. And so again, that sometimes that's a hard concept to, think about what's actually happening in the body. And I saw a really cool visual example of this on Instagram. this man had sand, and he like sprinkled the sand on this table. It was, some sort of special table. And then he used a bow from like a violin and ran it down the side of the table. And when he did that, the vibration from the bow hitting the side of the table made the sand all just like bounce around, and it made these beautiful shapes. And every time he did it, the sand would bounce again and make another beautiful shape. And I was like, what a great visual example of what's happening inside of our bodies with our cells, right? It's that idea that as we sync up with the vibration of the bowls, our cells are kind of like bouncing around in there and able to move in a new way, to release the things that are not serving us.
Mm.
So I've had my own personal experiences with sound healing, which was why I got into it. My first sound bath that I went to was like an out of body experience. And
Oh,
I was like,
really?
I need to get one of those bowls. And
It was a clear sign.
I was like, something is happening here. Yeah. And, but I've had some of my students say that it feels like they're floating, or they
Yeah.
see all sorts of colors, or they feel the energy moving in their body. I sometimes I'll play the bowls at the end of a yoga class. And one time I had a woman who came up to me and she was like, "What was that?" She's like, "I felt it here. I felt it." I was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I know." And she was
Yeah.
just like so blown away that she could feel it in her body, feel the sound in her body. And
Right. In a deep level. Hmm.
yeah. I mean, one time I went to a sound bath, and it was at this local college, and it was like a healing fair. And so there was all sorts of different classes going on. And so it was in this classroom, and the classroom was packed. And so everyone was sitting at these tables, and I was one of the last people to walk in, and I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it because it was so crowded. And she said, "Oh, just come down to the front." So I literally laid on the ground right in front of this massive gong. And at that
Wow.
time, I did not know what to expect from that. But when she started hitting that gong, I started feeling a lot. It was like all of these emotions coming up, and it was really intense for me. And it's
Yeah.
interesting how one person's experience can be so different from another, because I was with my cousin who was laying right next to me. And so I had this like it was not a comfortable feeling for me when I was, but it was necessary in bringing up some of this junk that I
Yes.
obviously had been suppressing. And then
Yes.
after the meditation, I come out of it, I'm like, oh, I'm like, I have work to do, and she was like, oh, I was like floating on a cloud, you
Yeah,
know.
everyone's
And
different. Everyone has different needs, and gong baths are so powerful. I love going to gong baths, and
Mhm.
they clear you. They just clear your energy,
Yep.
shake out what you don't need, but it can be very powerful. So you got to be prepared for those gong baths. But I love the sound baths too. Just so beautiful. You can relax, like you said, you can lay on the ground. Sometimes if you go to a place, they have special chairs for you to sit in. But it's beautiful. It's a beautiful practice. So, do you mostly work in group scenarios with the sound healing, or also one-on-one?
Yeah, so for the sound baths, I do have a monthly class that I do that is in person. And then I also use that when I do individual Reiki sessions. So I have what's called a practitioner bowl, which is like a bowl that's on on a stick kind of thing, where you're holding it and you can move it up and down someone's body, and
Oh,
direct the energy, which is really cool. So I do
wonderful.
group, and then I do individual sessions as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. You mentioned Reiki a little bit. I know that many people these days are familiar with Reiki, but for those who are watching who are not familiar with Reiki, can you say briefly what is Reiki and how it's also beneficial for healing?
Yeah. So Reiki is a form of Japanese energy healing, and it's the idea that energy is being channeled through the practitioner to the client, who is typically laying on a massage table fully clothed. And you sometimes there's light touch involved. Sometimes, your hands can hover. It's whatever the client is most comfortable with. And similarly to Reiki, to yoga, to tapping, it's just another way of moving energy. And a lot of the things that people experience can be similar to what is experienced in a sound bath, or using any of those other tools. Same idea of like um, tingly all over the body, or colors. And again, it's just another way for energy to move through the body and address the energy centers, the chakras in the body, and having the practitioner feel where they might feel that there's energy that's stuck, helping to move that along.
Yes, and Reiki is very gentle. It's very powerful, but very gentle. So again, it's wonderful for people who've had trauma and would not like to be touched by anyone because you can do it with no touch. And also it's great for those with chronic illnesses, chronic pain, because again, there's no touch. And it will lift the pain up and out. It will be, again, a release, kind of what you describe with a gong bath, but it's amazing. So definitely, if you have not tried Reiki, everyone, I highly recommend it. Again, I've been doing it for over 18 years. Very, very powerful, gentle modality. So can you take us through what you do in a healing session? How do you work with your clients? I know you do many different things, the EFT, the sound baths, and also Reiki. So what does a healing session look like with you?
Yeah. So it's really tailored to the person that I'm working with. And so sometimes a session is a full hour of tapping. Sometimes a session is some tapping and some coaching, some guided meditation, some Reiki. It really is based on intuitively what's coming through to me, what the client is comfortable with. And it always looks different. So
Yeah.
it can really depend. And then I do have a small group, and that small group is focused on entrepreneurs, and how, as entrepreneurs, we all deal with our own anxiety and stress, and the stress from our personal life can affect our business, and the stress from our business can affect our personal life. And so it's a small group of entrepreneurs who are all dealing with similar issues. And same thing, we use tapping, we use meditation in this group space. And there's always so many synchronicities from what one person is experiencing to the next. And there's power in that group healing space as well.
Wonderful, beautiful, great. So just describe a little bit more when they come in for EFT. Is it that they have a specific intention that they come to you for, and then you tap, and do you take them through a whole sequence? You mentioned before they could just sometimes do one
Mhm.
position.
So, excuse me. So when I work with my clients, sometimes it's something very specific that they come in with. Like, for example, a client that had a fear of going on elevators, and her
Mm,
goal was to be able to go on the elevator without having a panic attack. And
mm,
so we can work specifically on that. Other people come to me and they just say, I've heard about tapping. I'm an anxious person. I've tried all these other things. Nothing's really helped. I'm curious about it. Like, can you help me? And so we'll start at that more global level of, like, I'm really anxious, really overwhelmed. Sometimes people don't even know why. I don't even know why I'm feeling so overwhelmed.
yes,
And
yes.
so it's that idea of starting at that global level, and we really try and, like, go down the funnel and get as specific as possible. So, and sometimes it's like I'm dealing with this physical pain, and I want to see if I can find relief from it. So in that first session, we really try and set some goals, and what they're coming in with, why they're coming to see me, and then we just continue to work towards that. And it can be a very organic process, like I said, of, I'm not really sure, okay, let's figure it out together, and we go through it. And so we'll typically start with tapping, and that involves, having a conversation, me continuing to ask questions, and I always describe it as like an adult version of Simon Says. So I'll tap on a point, I'll say a sentence, and if the words that I'm saying, if they don't resonate with the person, I'll say, please stop me, or change the words, or let's figure out what really works. And we
And they'll
move
mirror
through.
you. They'll mirror you and say the
Yep.
same thing.
Exactly. Yep. So I'll tap and say the sentence, and they'll repeat the sentence, and then we just move through. And I encourage them to share whatever's coming up along the way. If there's a new thought or a memory, a lot of time, a memory from our past can come up, and we try and make sense of it. It's like, oh, well, that's not related to why I'm feeling this way. I can guarantee you, whatever memory's coming up, even if you don't think that there's a direct link, there's some sort of connection
Yeah,
there.
it's
So
related.
then
Yeah,
we explore that. So yeah, it's
beautiful.
connecting the dots.
Connecting those dots. Beautiful. Well, I love that you do this work. I love that you are into holistic healing like I do. And I have experienced EFT myself, and it's very powerful. So, like you said, you can see results very quickly within one session.
Yeah.
And again, from issues that people have been struggling with for a long time, that the practitioner will say on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel in the beginning? And then after doing a few rounds, how do you feel now? And the number will change within the session. So it's very, very powerful, and it's amazing. It's just, again, like you said, holding space, being conscious of your emotions, and being willing to go back and have a memory, have an understanding of where this came from, what the connection is from a past event.
Exactly. It's exactly it. It's allowing yourself to look at things a little bit differently and really reflect on some of the questions that the practitioner asks, and being open to doing so. And
Yeah.
I think that that has a direct correlation to how quickly shifts happen as well.
Yeah, and also not being afraid of your emotions. I think
Mhm.
a lot of women, especially, have been, conditioned to be a good girl and not to speak up and to be kind, and they think that anger and anxiety and fears are things that they shouldn't have and they shouldn't talk about. So if they have a fear, like you just described, that fears can come up, oh, what if I really get into that fear? How will that feel? Will I feel even more anxious and out of control? But you're able to support them, hold space for them, and then they will see that their fear may not be as big of an issue once they start to really face it head on and to
Mhm.
focus on it.
Yeah, and I think what's beautiful about tapping is that if the fear is really intense around feeling the feelings, and I have had that with clients where it's like, oh no, like I cannot allow myself to feel all that sadness or anger that I've
Yes,
not allowed myself to feel for years. That is way
yes,
too
too much
scary.
right now.
Yeah, like, that's okay. If you feel that way, that is okay. It doesn't mean that you can't do this work. It just means that we can tap on that fear and get that down to a level where it does feel more comfortable. So it is gentle, and that you never have to dive into the deep end and relive trauma
Yes.
that, in a way that is overwhelming or going to re-traumatize you. We could like step it back, take that 1,000-foot view, and get that anxiety or fear down to a level that's more manageable, and approach it in a way that is going to be really supportive for you.
Great. So what you're saying is basically you can guide them, and if it's too high of an intense emotion, you can kind of direct their thought that they will be dealing with to change. So it may be a little bit different, and then eventually go up to the big, powerful thought when they're
Exactly.
ready. Beautiful.
Exactly. Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay. Anything else you would like to share about the work that you do, and also who is your target audience?
Yeah. So I work with middle-aged women. A lot of the time they are entrepreneurs, not always. But women who are or have like tried different modalities, and maybe are still looking for something to help them move that needle and feel better. And knowing that everybody is worthy of feeling good. We all deserve to feel good, and
Yes.
I am passionate about helping people figure out what modalities are going to work best for them. Different modalities resonate with different people, and I just always will say, to give yourself that gift of exploring the things that you're curious about,
Yes.
and allowing yourself to do that. Because a lot of the time we'll say, oh, we I don't have time for that, or oh, what are people going to think if I go do that?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. There's
like,
a lot of
if
pressure.
yeah,
Good
like
pressure.
if the thought is coming up to give something a try, do that. Give yourself that gift. You deserve it.
Yes, give yourself that gift, and give yourself the gift of connecting with yourself, connecting with your spirit, and having self-care for yourself. Because again, as
Yes.
women, we are overgivers. We give, give, give to everyone else, and we forget sometimes we need the self-care. We need the attention.
Yeah, we have to come home to ourselves.
Yes, yes.
Mm,
And I love how you say in your bio that we have all the answers inside and we just
mhm.
need to access them. So, can
Yeah.
you talk a little bit about that? How you believe we have the answers, and how through the session, through working with you, that the answers will appear?
Yeah, I mean, I just truly believe that we all know what it is that we need. A lot of the time, we don't think that. We'll be in the outside world asking people what their opinion is, what they think we should do, looking for this outside thing that is going to help us, when truly the answers are all within. And sometimes they're buried deep, or they're covered up for whatever reason. And so it's really helping people to cultivate that relationship between the mind and the body, and really being able to tune in and listen and connect with that intuition, and trust yourself. There's so much power there when we can really trust ourselves,
Yeah.
and that's what I love helping people do.
Beautiful, beautiful. And final question. I know that a lot of people are feeling anxiety these days, and there's a lot of trauma in the world. Is there anything you can recommend for people so that they can alleviate some of this anxiety and trauma?
Yeah. Well, I would say, making the time for yourself to acknowledge the feelings. Don't just continue to suppress them and power on, because oftentimes that's what society tells us to do. Just keep going, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that'll work for the short term, but in the long term, all that comes back up to bite you. So allow yourself to feel the feelings and explore the different modalities and see what helps you to do that best. And if people are curious about learning more details about EFT, I do have a free masterclass on
Wonderful.
my website, which you can access by going to mindshiftwithlauren.com/masterclass. And then I also have a free monthly meeting that I offer that it's marketed towards entrepreneurs, but all are welcome, where we do tapping together as a group. And it's a great way to tap in real time with someone, and have that connection of community. And that's on the first Thursday of every month. And all the details are on my website too, mindshiftwithlauren.com.
Wonderful, wonderful. And all of the links will be below this video. So everyone just go ahead and make sure you go to the description and click on those links. And this has been a wonderful conversation. So thank you so much for being here, Lauren. This has been really inspirational. I hope the audience has enjoyed this conversation. So everyone, make sure that you subscribe to Holistic Me TV. Again, this is season 1. This is a series. I am bringing guests from all around the world, and they are sharing so much value, so much information, and expertise in so many various fields. So definitely like this video, definitely subscribe to the channel. Go ahead and hit subscribe so that you will be notified. You will receive an email in your inbox so that you do not miss an episode. So thank you again, Lauren, for being here. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for watching. If you have a question, you can leave it in the comments below. If you have a comment, if you learned something new, let us know what you learned that was new, and share this video. Let people know about EFT. Let people know about sound baths, sound healing, and Reiki, and healing themselves and taking the time for self-care. And last words, you can also learn more about me on my website, www.thedancingcurtain.com. But again, this was a pleasure, Lauren. Thank you so much for being
Thank
here today.
you. Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you all for watching Holistic Me TV.